Hello students, this is the video related to Chapter 1 and 2 of the Ticket to Write textbook. What we're going to do in this video, and again it's a supplement to our class discussion, I'm kind of going to walk you through the highlights of the chapter. I realize you've read it, but I want to make you familiar with some of the key concepts of the chapter. And what might be a good idea to do is, as you're viewing this video, have the textbook in front of you. We're going to start on page 3, and we'll work our way through, again, the key concepts just so you have a good understanding of those. So starting on page 3, and chapter 1 is entitled The Writing Process and Pre-Writing. So the first key concept and that I'm going to put up here on the computer is a consideration for writing process. And you'll see on page 3 that the writing process is described as a winding path. That is, you have your start with pre-writing, then discovery drafting, then new ideas, and revising. And if you look over to the next page, it kind of outlines that as well on page 4. So the writing process, we start with pre-writing, and that's where you get ideas. It's the basic start of the writing process. You have to get ideas, and we're going to talk in just a couple minutes about how you can pump your creative well to get those ideas going. Along with pre-writing is also discovery drafting, and that's also sometimes referred to as first draft. Discovery drafting is where you're just putting your ideas on paper, and we need first drafts so that we can look and see how things are progressing, and from there we can make changes as necessary. Also, after that, we have what is called revising, and revising is simply where you add or subtract details, and that's particularly adding or subtracting from the discovery draft. I'll backtrack a little bit, and we have editing and proofreading. That's looking at, and I'll adjust this just a little so we can zoom it out so you guys can see that. Looking at fine points. That's where you're combing through your draft and really putting the finishing touches, making sure your grammar is in check, spelling, punctuation, so on and so forth. I'll back out. And I'm going to stop at publishing because I realize that professional writers go through the step of publishing, but instead of calling it publishing, let's call it submitting. And that's when you get your final grade on an assignment. Of course, the first one that we're going to be dealing with is the source-based paper, so we'll be going through this process leading up to the source-based paper. I'm skipping over on page 4 paragraph and essay because we spent some time with essay components already. You can read that on your own, and certainly I think it'll be good information to keep in mind. But what I would like to look at instead are on page 5, pre-writing techniques. Of course, pre-writing is step 1 of the writing process. What's very interesting to note is that there are different ways to come up with ideas on any given topic. So for example, right now you're working on your source-based paper, or you will be working on it soon. So we've got different techniques that we can use to get the idea process going. The first one's listed on page 5, and that is simply listing. So if I come down, I can make listing here. And when you list, what you're really doing is, as the book says, you're letting your mind go free about a particular subject, idea, or question. And you're doing it in such a way that you're listing it just as you would make like a grocery list, for example. So it's simple, but you're making a list of ideas. What comes to mind? And you're putting those things right on your paper. And the idea is that if you just jot down your thoughts as they occur, you'll be able to really tap into your subconscious and list everything out. Don't worry at that point if something doesn't seem to really fit in with the rest of the list. You'll have time later to go back and do some review of your listing. Okay, so that's, again, listing. And I'll back up just a bit. The next technique that's given to you on page 7, I'm on page 7 now, is clustering. And clustering is visual. That is the visual representation of your ideas, or ideas in visual form. And it's just as it's shown on page 7. You've got your main idea, which is mountain biking, on page 7. And it's in a circle, or what we sometimes call a bubble. Clustering has different terms associated with it. You may have heard clustering as bubbling, so on and so forth. But it's basically putting your main idea or your topic in a center bubble and springing from it, branching from it to see which ideas stand out to you. And from those sub-ideas, and for example, one sub-idea is state park trails, you can branch off from that to say good terrain, free to use, nature, peaceful, plenty of trails. Those again is on page 7. So it's just a good idea to try this if you find that you're more drawn to visual learning. Keep in mind that we all learn differently and we have different ways of learning. So this is just another technique that you can use to help you get ideas going. So I'm going to back up again, and what I'm going to do next is what's called fast writing, also known as free writing. So if you hear fast writing, it's free writing. They're one and the same. It's a really cool concept. I really like free writing. I do quite a bit of it on my own. I probably do more fast writing and journaling than anything. The way fast writing works, and you'll find the information on page 7, and it does extend over to 8. Actually, the top of page 8 gives you an example of fast writing. It's essentially when you write your topic at the top of your paper, and if you're writing by hand, the key to the exercise is to time yourself. I usually recommend that my students take about 10 minutes for a free writing session. I find that any more than 10 minutes, you can really start to lose focus, but 10 minutes is a good time frame. I use my cell phone usually, and I'll set my time on my phone for 10 minutes, and it will count back from 10 minutes. And as soon as you start your timer, the key is your topic's on your paper, your timer has started. You keep your pen or pencil moving across the paper. You don't stop writing, and you're writing in sentence form. Now, it's called fast or oftentimes free writing because you're not concerned with spelling, grammar, punctuation. Again, these are pre-writing techniques, so there will come a time later to worry about the mechanics. You're just trying to get ideas at this point. So you keep that pen or pencil moving, or if you're typing, you keep that moving, and it's continuous, non-stop writing. So the key here is that even if you find that you're running out of things to say, write that down. Say, I don't know what I want to say about my topic. What am I trying to say? And the key is to get yourself refocused, and at some point quickly you want to get back in tune with what it is you're trying to say about your topic. It's a very freeing method that will allow you to tap again into your subconscious and see what's in there so that you can put it out on the paper. It's a good technique, and when you're done with it and your 10 minutes are up, your buzzer sounds, you stop no matter where you are, and you review the things that you have written. And no, not everything will be useful, but the idea is that there will be some things that might be useful, and you're able to tap into those useful aspects of your idea. There's also, I'm going to back up a little bit here. Reporters' questions on page 8. That's the who and the what, the why, where, when, and how of your topic. Once you start to formulate questions that deal with those areas, it's usually putting yourself in a good position to come up with some details as you answer them in terms of what am I thinking about with my topic. And there's some examples given on page 8. I won't go into those for the sake of time, but it is a good technique. The last one is journaling, and that's personal experiences. If you want to equate this to the source-based paper, some of you are probably choosing topics that may be a little personal in nature or that you have personal experience with. And if you go back through journaling, and even if you've kept a journal, it might be a good idea to review it so that you're getting in touch with how you're feeling about the topic, and realize that your feelings could change. You might go into a topic thinking you feel one way, but then figure out later on that, hey, I don't really feel the way I thought I did. I'm learning more about the topic and it's changing my point of view. Okay? So we're going to take a little pause here because I think that this pretty much satisfies what we need to cover in terms of Chapter 1. And I'm going to come up here and change over to Chapter 2. That's right, I'm just putting both chapters in the same video for the sake of clarity. So Chapter 2 begins over on 14, and it is a considerably longer chapter. The good news is we've covered some of it already. On bottom of 15, we've talked about the topic sentence already. We've talked already about reporters' questions and clustering on page 15. And on page 16, it gives more information about topic sentence, and it's important information, and you can look it over, but we can skip ahead to a lot of this information. And again, this is on the essay components info that I gave you in class. Same thing with supporting sentences. All this chapter is doing early on is just expanding upon those ideas that we've already covered. So do look them over. On page 20, there's some interesting information about organizing. That's a key concept. Organizing ideas. Once your ideas come together from the pre-writing, you want to try to organize them in a logical way. The book shows you information about how to do that using time, which is earliest to latest. And again, I'm on page 20. Space, from front to back, top to bottom, side to side, etc. And importance, most to least important, and vice versa. And there's also time, chronology or chronological order can become important. Now, I've not assigned you to do any of the exercises yet, but you might look at them. You don't have to do them yet, but you might look especially at exercises like 2.5 that show you how to generate supporting details. And also 2.7 on page 22 shows you how to identify irrelevant details. And all of these exercises are going to help you in terms of organization. That's a key content area when we're talking about writing. You know, you have to be organized, and we'll talk in much more detail throughout the semester as far as how that plays in to what you need to do in your writing. Really, just got a couple of other key concepts I want to cover. I want to keep things short because, again, we'll expand upon some of these ideas in class as well. But the next idea from Chapter 2 that I want you to take away, and this is a big one, this is one of the biggest terms you'll have all semester, it's thesis statement. Thesis statement. And you'll find information about thesis statement beginning on page 23. It tells you what a thesis statement is. It's essentially the main idea of an essay or paper. So for your source paper, it's going to be your point of view, how you're showing your persuasive point of view in the paper. And one of the things that you'll see on over to 26 are mistakes that can happen with thesis statement. And it gives you information about making an announcement, stating a fact, a statement that's too broad or too narrow. Now let me share this information with you. A thesis is not a question. So you never formulate your thesis as a question. That's just something to keep in mind. It's a statement, not a question. So when you make your thesis, you want to stand tall, be bold, be fearless, but realize that it's not a question. You're not raising a question for your reader in the form of a thesis. Please become familiar with thesis. There's a lot of information. Activity 2.8 might be something that we do in our future on page 26. You might want to look that over. Again, you don't have to do it yet, but just start looking these exercises over because we'll try to get some work in coming up soon. And the last concept, and I want to stress again that we're going to cover some of these concepts in class. This is just supplement to get you ready for that, is coherence. And that is mentioned on page 33. And just as you can read, it means when something's coherent, that means it's clearly connected or logical. You want your ideas, especially in a source paper, to be clearly connected and logical. And the book shows you how a sentence can be coherent and how the sentences can make a paragraph coherent, and illustrating ideas, offering explanations, or relating steps. And I like on page 34 that there's a listing of common transitions. These are words that we use in our writing that helps the writer move from one idea to the next. And in doing so, it helps the writer stay coherent or have coherence. So that's very key. I'm going to stop right here because I feel like that this video has probably demonstrated to you the key concepts. And again, these are concepts that we will touch upon in class as well. Please review them carefully, and I hope that you found this video helpful. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I know we moved quickly, so if you need to review this and follow along with your book, take your time. You can back this video up, move it forward, whatever works best for you. But again, this is a supplement. We'll try to cover some of these concepts in class. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. Hopefully it's been helpful. And I'll see you soon in class. Take care.